While Travis sets up, I will just follow up on something that we mentioned last month. I did just mention briefly to you about we're in the process of looking into hiring a consultant to address some of the identifying our market with our incubator spaces, recruiting businesses into those that are appropriate, so forth and so on. We're going to be working this next month to develop a scope of work, and we hope by the next meeting we will be bringing 3 quotes back to you with our recommendation on how to proceed with that. So just to kind of give you that update. I don't have anything for you today in regards to that, but I didn't want you to be caught off guard when we just show up with 3 quotes next month.
Is that the chamber that's doing that?
No, sir, that will be specifically for the IDA. It's in regards to Tech River incubator space as well as the manufacturing incubator space. And hopefully we'll get the quotes in enough time that we can send them to you for review prior to the board meeting.
Share that with me.
Oh, I just got an email, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Governor Scott has selected as Lieutenant Governor former Representative Carlos Lopez Cantera from Miami-Dade. Breaking news.
Yeah. He's probably afraid.
Property appraiser Miami-Dade.
Hopefully that's time, but that's okay.
Good morning, distinguished members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I guess we're ready for the lights. Mr. Lambert. Sitting in the play.
Could you turn up the volume, please?
It was shown. I'm not sure when it was. I apologize. Is this working? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm going to present to you things that have happened in December for our report. In regards to the CareSync software development, we are undergoing the design and development of the release 2.3 for web and iOS. They're in development with a targeted release in early 2014. Specific in the major highlights in terms of major efforts within this release or medication adherence, the ability to track your meds daily and be prompted to take them, be prompted for refills and so forth. There is a lot of cost benefit to medication compliance, which is documented to be around $400 to $500 billion a year that it costs this country for people not taking their meds as prescribed. There's a history reporting function with filtering, so as we now have gone through months of getting thousands of people's charts into the software, there's now the ability to prepare for a visit that is disease or diagnosis condition focused. And so if you have a pulmonary condition and you have all these pulmonary records in visit, how do you prep and filter to communicate just that information to that provider? So these filtered reports are pretty huge, as well as the ability to automatically send them before an appointment. The concept of My Day. So now everything will be trickled up in terms of tasking, appointments, people's tasks that you have from other family members and so forth, and so that you can just manage your day from a tickler system and be prompted. And then CareSync Plus progress. We continue to do a lot. It's kind of like an iceberg where there's a lot below the water line that you don't see. And really, the bottom of the iceberg is a lot of the stuff that we do with Care St. Cloud's representatives in the Tech River facility. And we continue to make their jobs more efficient, which allows for job satisfaction increases, obviously, as well as them just being able to get more done in a given day. So there's a lot of release requests that come from them. And then lastly, we continue to do the appointment booking and task coordination with workflows, as now this is a new thing that is being done by Tech River. Regarding the highlights to our management services component, again, it is the business model that we came up with. That is specifically why we're here, is to create a company that depends on jobs. This was not a technology solution that's just based upon downloads and a help desk. It was an integral business plan that was based to generate jobs. And so as a result, we continue to evangelize that message nationally, talking about our high-touch component. And we've described this multiple times in regarding the process of retrieving, transcribing, scanning the original documents for the ability to fax and look at some of the specifics. And then lastly is that we recognize that within our sales and marketing efforts, we're coming up to some substantial opportunities. And if these substantial opportunities commence into an agreement, our need for jobs will be significant and will be rather quickly, will be a rapid request or need. And as a result, we're working with Heartland Workforce to do a supply and demand study on what is available in terms of the skill sets. And they have documented, communicated back to us that these are the things that they're doing in regards to a demand and supply study in the individual entities that they are also relying on into determining what we think some of the maximum counts would be over a given period of time in terms of the number of people that can work there at the Tech River facility. Our sales pipeline, as you may know, that we had 2 holidays back-to-back, both on the hump days of the week. And so that created for a little bit of a logjam in terms of trying to schedule demos and other follow-up situations, but that has passed, and I think that we managed that well. We've increased our number to 5 companies that are well within the mature portion of a sales cycle, and we continue to now gain new demonstrations and new considerations from other companies that are part of the portfolio of the MOU that we had with that company in terms of patient registry and research. We have had hundreds of signups in January. What this means is that we talked about how we were going to start to utilize last month national campaigns for marketing. Those have paid off. Without getting into the numbers, I will tell you that we are in the multi-thousand percentile of growth in this first 11 days of January than we were in the first 11 days of December. We are seeing extraordinary growth from the consumer market specific. So remember that I had communicated to you that we had a 2-prong approach in terms of driving business for our software and for our services. One was the enterprise. So that's called the one-to-many. Sell an enterprise, get many customers. Then there's basically the one-to-one. It's a national branding and marketing opportunity where you brand and message people over familiar social internet environments like web searching, like Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Google, Yahoo, and others. And we have started to do that and test various messages. I will tell you, just in a period of time yesterday, we had over 91 downloads of our software just on the iOS platform. So we are starting to see that we've had enormous amounts of traction in the consumer space of people resonating that they need to have a greater degree of effectiveness in navigating healthcare, and they are looking for assistance in that. Also want to talk about how we've expanded our market, and based upon our conversations and now some of our demos, is that pharmacy companies are very, very much interested in what we are doing. They do not natively have the call centers to communicate with their users, and more drugs for chronic diseases are leaving the CVS and Walgreens environments and going more to mail order and specialty pharmacies because they do special packaging. They pre-cut tablets that are too big to take. They create custom blister packs that determine that are completely customized based upon the number of pills you have to take at the times of day you have. And so we are working with one of the companies in Georgia, matter of fact, the largest or fastest company in Georgia that's doing this, that has a 99% retention rate. And one of the reasons is that they are looking on a platform that reconciles medication. And what that means is if you have 5 doctors and they're all prescribing you meds, how do you reconcile which is the real list, meaning which are active, which are inactive, which are duplicates? What does that reconciliation process look like? That's something that's done down here in Tech River. That's part of the benefit that we have. That advantage, that service, that process, and then having a piece of technology that pharmacists, their care managers, and so forth can now talk on the phone, see the list that they're on, and see what they're taking when they're taking it is a quantum leap in what's available out there. And so it is working to our advantage. But the point I'm trying to make succinctly is that we've had a lot of expansion into a message with pharmacies and those companies that often support pharmacies, which are research organizations. Matter of fact, we also are partners now with the College of Pharmacy at USF, and that was more by their meeting than it was ours, meaning that they called us for meetings, we met with them, and so they are opening up specialty pharmacy clinics within the USF physician group, and what will be the platform there. So this project continues to see progress, and I know that that's hard to sometimes see in this kind of environment, but it is. I encourage you to Google and look and see and use the application and ask me the questions that you need to ask, and I will tell you the answers truthfully and honestly. But we are continuing to get progress despite anyone's personal opinion or agenda. This company is growing. A lot of things that we are doing in marketing, we continue to refine our message and see what is cost effective. We've talked about this in over the summer, how we were really starting to go out there on the national environment, starting to build brand awareness, also starting to do more thought leadership. We have been asked to be part of more part of conferences, panels, being actual featured speakers and so forth, and we continue to now book those for 2014. We have gotten millions of impressions in terms of how many people have actually just seen our ad in CareSync. And they're clicking on that, they're exposed to CareSync, and they're also exposed to the fact of our presence here in Hardee County. And now we're starting to do webinars where we're bringing in other physicians to talk about the vital importance of sharing your story and sharing the fact that when you go and you see a provider, it's important to be effective communicators so that they will listen. Does anyone want to fathom a guess what the national average is in terms of time frame that a doctor will interrupt you on the question of why are you here? Anyone want to take a guess? I think it's a minute, 2 minutes, half a minute. It's actually 10 seconds.
It's long enough time to paper to get your money.
Well, being on the billing side, it takes them a long time to get their money, but the point is I agree with this man in the sense that there is this perception that your doctor's not listening, and quite frankly, they're not. Because you're not communicating in a message that they want to understand, and they're under the time constraints, and so they're relying more on the intuition, their experience, to try to make a quick diagnosis and a quick treatment plan. The problem is that model has failed, and certainly the government and other entities know that it's failing, and that's one of the reasons why our company and so many others are in this industry is to make a difference. But the point is that I think we have a webinar scheduled for the 29th with Dr. Wynn. She is a sharing expert out of the DC area. She's written books on, she's an emergency room physician, has quite the following. And she talks about the importance of sharing medical records and sharing your story with your provider. In regards to raising capital, are there paychecks in Tech River? The answer is yes. Somebody's asked the question, well, who floated the difference last month? I did. Who's going to float the differences until we have some of this stuff come together in terms of new financing? I will. So those are the answers to those questions, and we certainly appreciate all the efforts that have been done to continue to work and explain to investors what the IDA is, what is Hardee County, why are we here, and why are we here in a way, in a model that says that nearly most of all of our hires, in terms of any of our hiring plans, are here in this county. And so it is important, and I ask you please, as you continue to meet with these people and they do due diligence on this county and on this board, that you would show them the side that I love, and that is a bunch of people who their word means everything, and who have a great love for this county and its citizens who see jobs put here. And so I want to thank you for that effort that has been done and the anticipated effort coming forward. And then the last slide is in terms of marketing in Tech River. I will tell you that during each VC meeting or any meeting with private equity or what they call wealth managers that manage ultra wealthy families, is that we do tell them about these opportunities. We actually just tried to get one company, heard about the fill line, and they're actually making a liquid insane that you kind of drink like a power drink, unfortunately. That fill line requires FDA approval, and I wasn't about to even offer up that sort of noise here with the FDA in Hardee County. But the point is that we do talk about this environment as being a place where I think businesses can come down here and partner. I know that there are some evolving learning steps as to what that looks like, and I know that it's about building trust, and I still believe wholeheartedly that we will achieve greatness here in terms of putting the money into worthy investments that create jobs and evolve the company, and evolve the country, or county rather, into having jobs that aren't here and skills that aren't here, that there is a rebranding and that there is a new crop of new jobs here, and that can see the next generation into a level of security, which is what matters most. I will finish this on a personal note. Yesterday in Wesley Chapel, some of you may have heard that a man was shot. It happened at about 1:30, I think, yesterday, and it was sort of, it took us all back because this place is 2 miles down the road, and apparently a guy was texting his 3-year-old daughter during the previews, and a couple behind this couple got into some kind of verbal altercation, and the other man left, came back with a gun and shot him in the chest. That guy was 43 years old, orphaned a 3-year-old daughter. You can go and see it all over Facebook if you want. His name's Chad Olson, Oulson, and his wife is also in the hospital from a gunshot wound to the hand as she tried to protect her husband. I know that some people think that, business people and others may or may not have the best intention, but that's the same movie where we saw the Bond film. That's in our neighborhood, and I think about what it is for a man and his wife to take the afternoon off and go see a movie, and only one comes home. To me, in my heart and what we do, we're here about creating jobs, but those jobs, to me, give the security to a family that allows people to sit there and enjoy the rest of their life. And when that anxiety is managed by having a meaningful place to work, it means all the difference to a family. And when you multiply families, you get a community. When you get a community, you get a living town. So for me, the ends to a mean is a job, and it's something that you can feel good about. I think that we have made a very good investment in something I know that a lot of you cannot natively understand because we are the first of our kind here. But we continue to plug away, and we're seeing results. And so I do thank you for your patience, and I really do appreciate it when you listen and you ask thoughtful questions, because the more educated you are in what we do, the more comfortable you will be to discuss this publicly, openly with your friends and so forth, because there's going to come a time very shortly where we're going to need a lot of jobs. And for me, in a selfish level, we need those people who are excited about working at Tech River and Continuum, who are excited about making a difference in people's lives. And that's what we do. We have clients all over the United States whose records are processed in this town, and they talk to them every day. There's a guy, Steven, that works there. We get calls. I said, the guy made 500 calls last month talking to people. That's awesome, because it gives him an opportunity to touch people that are freaking out about their health care. 500 touch points last month, just by one person of our staff of CS Pluses in this town. And to me, I know that when he gets on the phone and he's disarming and he's comforting and his heart's in the right place, that for me, from a business perspective, means I can grow something here and grow it in a great way that we add value. That is the win-win that I'm looking for. So attitude is a lot, but also recognizing that our attitude and our culture really is to create an environment where people like to work, love doing what they're doing, and recognizing they're helping people that really can't always help themselves. Thank you.
Are you ready for questions?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What was the relevance of the story of the gunshot with regard to your producing something beneficial for the county? Let me point out, first of all, I believe I'm correct, but the shooter was a retired policeman, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
You did not mention that. But I don't see any relevance to that story. Next question. When we had our meeting, and I was the first one in with Jamie Grant and you and myself at the behest of Christie calling the meeting. When we got together, you asked me if I had signed the confidentiality agreement. Did you get the same conversation going with Mr. Davis, who met with you at 2 o'clock, and Jamie Grant and you, Travis Bond? Let me ask you, did you sign the confidentiality agreement?
No, sir.
No. When are we going to hear from the IDA the recordings that were made of the people that were asked to meet individually with Jamie Grant and Travis Bond?
I'm not aware that recordings were made on our behalf that day. I understand that you made a recording of your meeting with them.
With the agreement of Bill Lambert, with whom they
Well,
conferred
I'm
for
not-
13 minutes.
I'm not
giving
saying
you
anyone
information.
did or didn't agree, but
Since
I
you
didn't
know
record
it, I'm
my
providing you
meeting.
with the information.
So what
They left me
makes-
sitting there for 13 minutes while they had a meeting whether to decide whether it's a good thing to do.
Mhm.
We brought out, and I had agreement from Travis Bond and Jamie Grant that we need to do that for our own protection against unwarranted accusations. Such happened the same day by Jim C. that afternoon, because when I handed out the discs that were strictly the conversation between the three of us, we had agreed that I would provide Mr. Bond with an exact copy for himself and for Jamie Grant, which I did. And I did not violate any sunshine laws as I was accused of. But that doesn't bother me. I'm trying to figure out why was there a pre-meeting the day before the official meeting with Mr. Jamie Grant coming in here to lobby us, in effect, and my recording will show you that the attempt was made at lobbying. Why didn't he show up at the general meeting the next day? Why did we have to have a pre-meeting? And that's enough for me to talk about right now.
Okay, I want to back up though to your previous statement.
Yeah.
Because it has also been said in an email, and I'm not sure where that is coming from, that the IDA recorded those meetings. I am
That
not
came-
aware, and I don't know, I mean, if any other board member is aware, please let me know.
The
But
IDA could have recorded it because it was an official meeting that was put in place within the confines of Sunshine. That could have been done. The whole meeting could have been recorded for everyone, and then every one of us members could have known what each individual member had said. This is conquered by division.
So my understanding of those meetings, and maybe Ken can help bring
That was
some
good, right,
clarity.
I noticed too. I appreciate that.
My understanding is it gives us an opportunity to ask any questions as board members that, we feel we need to ask of the company that may not be something that board members are comfortable asking publicly, so that you can have a comfort level in discussing things
Thank you
publicly.
very much.
So I'm not quite sure where, when we have issues that come before any county commission, businesses or individuals have the right to request meetings with public officials. There's nothing out of the ordinary. There's nothing out of the sunshine law in regards to that. So I'm not sure where you're going with that. I mean, if it wasn't your preference to conduct that meeting,
I made the
or
recordings, letting them know, because I wanted every member to hear what I had to say, so that I'm not secret or cutting deals or being offered anything.
well, to clarify that no one board member of this board has any authority to cut any deal with anyone. So, that wouldn't even be a possibility to come out of a meeting like that. So if it's your preference not to have a meeting like that, you're welcome to decline a meeting with
No, my
a
preference
company or an
was-
individual.
No, my preference was for every member on this board and every member in the public to hear what an IDA member said, which is a public document, and I made it available, and I handed it to Mr. Bond, because he was going to see Jamie Grant more likely, because that was a promise that I made. Now, if you would have listened to this, see, the other thing too is, I get accused of violating sunshine law, and then somebody, I don't know which one of the ladies went around, picked each one of those public documents up and handed them back to me. That's a violation of sunshine law.
No, I don't agree. And
Well,
Ken,
whether
if you have
agree or not,
anything
it's law.
to add to that?
Certainly due precedent. Aired in grievances.
Madam Chair, I think you addressed it accurately in what you said. Mr. Horst, if you don't want to meet with any particular person requesting a meeting, that's your prerogative. You don't need to feel compelled to, or that it's your absolute duty to. The IDA staff is only going to record meetings of the IDA in which are advertised and like today. So I'm not aware that there was any recording made on the IDA side of it, and to the extent you recorded it because you wanted to keep it transparent, your meeting transparent, that is absolutely your prerogative. And there's nothing about it that violates your meeting or the others that violated the sunshine law. I mean, I believe I stated at the meeting that
At the commissioners' meeting the same day.
that in your handing out those things, I was very, much concerned about it not being handed out and played in the actual forum of the advertised meeting, and that listening to your conversation outside the advertised meeting might be construed as a violation, and that's why the girls picked them up from the members so that they would not listen to them outside a meeting. If you want all of the IDA in public to hear the content of that, it needs to be put on the agenda, in my opinion, and played at this meeting, because could at least be construed as communication between one IDA member and others outside the meeting. So I'm the one that's responsible for cautioning the board members not to listen to it outside an advertised public meeting.
Thank you very much. Now, one last item here. Lost my train of thought, but it'll come to me in a second. I'll just pass for the moment.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Bond, I had a question for you. In your discussion, in your presentation, you mentioned that you're having discussion with the Heartland Workforce Board to talk about basically ramping up jobs. What would be the availability? Have they given you any indication on any issues that you might have if you were to receive a big contract and need to hire up quickly? Is there any constraints that you're facing? Have you had any issues finding qualified candidates or hiring in Hardy County?
We have. One of the things that we had found is that in our initial sort of salvo of requests at Heartland is that we really wanted to have medical expertise, some exposure to the medical environment, whether it's ambulatory, hospital, hospice, nursing home, have an understanding of the terminology and so forth. We have since come back and sort of reworked that. You can imagine, if you will, we took the Bentley approach in our first sort of how we tackled how we processed a chart. Meaning Bentley right now, if you build a car, it's one guy that builds the car. They don't do mass production, at least they used to. And so there was a sense of pride of ownership. If I built that engine, it was one person that built the Bentley engine. And in our perspective, we have found that we were more efficient in evolving into more of a production line. So Steve making 500 phone calls, he's more of a skill set that is apt to make phone calls, track down records, ask questions. So he was more of a verbal communicator. And so we found that the medical skill set wasn't as needed in that case, but our transcribers do. They need to understand the difference between tracheotomy and trichinosis. And so we have kind of gone back and forth with the work board in terms of rearranging what we think the skill sets are. In fairness to them, they're still a work in progress, and our requests are significant, and we want to be certain that we can meet those in a timely fashion. I will tell you that what is planned for Q1 in terms of the number of people that would have to be processed in this county exceeds the population of the county in terms of the number of medical records. And so it will not be an insignificant task. When we have some metrics and data that really kind of works out the math, it's not a small undertaking. I would, and so based upon what I think is hopefully a way to sort of break down the production line, we broaden the skill sets, and that will sort of help with more of the supply component, and certainly the preferences to Hardy County residents as it has been. And so we'll know more in the next couple of weeks based upon the data that we have from December's data from Tech River. To answer your question, Member Horst.
Yeah, the moment I stopped talking, it popped back into me. Because this is such an important subject, and we've talked about it together for 2 hours, and once when we were separate. I was going to make a motion, and you'll confirm that we should have put them on at the meeting here for 3 hours. Since it's so important and so many questions and so many people uncomfortable about whether they can ask a question or not, give them 3 hours when something is so important and get everything out. Correct? Didn't I say that?
I don't recall.
Well, when you listen to it,
I've not listened to your tapes.
Not talking about his take.
Okay, I'm sorry, back to Heartland Workforce Board. I had a couple of additional questions for you. With the contracts that you currently have pending or in process, what do you estimate the smallest number of jobs you may create in Hardy County? And I mean, obviously without their supporting data, I understand you don't have that. But what do you think the smallest number of jobs or the largest number of jobs you might be creating in 2014 in Hardy County might be?
Since I will be more comfortable in talking about the lower limits between 40 and 70, based upon the number of contracts and just from a mathematical approach. Barring any new efficiencies or requests and less services or more services in terms of scope, we've determined that the math is probably looking at about 40 new jobs, the ones that we already have now.
So 40 in addition to what you currently have, and of course that would be contingent on executing any of these contracts and the also the VC funding, I would presume, would be a big component of that to ramp up that number of jobs.
Yeah, it's all tied together, because one of the things that, if you are a multi-billion-dollar company, you do a level of due diligence on the firm that's going to process your work. And in healthcare, there is a level of stability that is required. Not just stability in operations, but stability in terms of processes. Long-term liability based upon the fact that you'll be contacting their members on behalf of them. They want to know that you'll be around for years to come. And so it is a concerted effort to paint not just a sound business model, but also a set of partners and stakeholders that are as equally committed to seeing the project through. And when I say that, in terms of through, it is that we have created a unique model, not only for investors to try to examine, but also a unique model in what insurance carriers and others are looking at. It is a blend of technology and jobs. Typically, when you look at our industry in healthcare, you're either one or the other, not both. And certainly from the patient's perspective. And so if you're an EMR company that's installing Cerner at Florida Hospital, you are an EMR company only. You're not both. Beyond just say a trainer and implementer. You just don't do both. And so, it's a model that requires coordination of several components. The supply component is a big deal. Where do we overflow if we have to overflow quickly? And some of these things are real questions that need real answers to, because you don't want to have us commit to insurance company A for 20,000 charts and find out that we need 70 bodies in 2 months or 3 months to process all of this. And so there's some, we've made a lot of strides in understanding the model based upon the sampling of the charts that we get. The irony of statistical sampling is that our original page count in April per the average pages per chart. Now, this is sampling, the power of sampling. Changed by 2. It went from 100x to 100x plus 2. It changed only by 2 pages after thousands and thousands of pages and hundreds of people's charts later. And so we know that we're starting to get data that is representative of the amount of work that would be required to process new data. So I think that as a low end as 40 is a conservative estimate, because we don't get years to transcribe these records. We have to do it in months.
Travis, it seems like to me every month for the last 12 months, you come up here and you've got all these companies that's fixing to come on board, all these hospitals that's fixing to come on board, all these insurance companies that's fixing to come on board. You're meeting with investors, you're doing this, but it never seems to come to reality. When do you think this stuff's all going to come together? Is it going to be another year, another 2 years, 2 months? But it just doesn't seem to work.
I think it's kind of I think we've been pregnant, and I think everybody's waiting for the birth. But we are pregnant. And I think the analogy holds in that people look for progress in different ways. In growing a company that was nothing, we've had to build not only the technology platform, but we've had to navigate the changing environment to do that in. Obamacare, there's nothing been like it since Medicare.
Thank you.
And it is much bigger than Medicare, or Medicaid for that instance. 93 million people will change insurance companies this year. There's so much upset. So when, during our pregnancy phase, we have had to build arms, legs, fingers, toes, eyes, heart, the whole system. Do an enterprise sale is about a 6-month process, meaning that with company X, next week is our 15th organized meeting. That will include at least 2 C-level people and the entire clinical team from the state they represent, which represent hundreds of thousands of members. They don't enter into multi-million-dollar agreements lightly. That is why we have tried to bifurcate and go to a consumer market as well. It's a shorter sales cycle. From an investment community standpoint, though, they want to understand the model, and they also want to see the first clients and see how that actually works out. I believe and have personally invested, as well as my team, which goes back to the Horst question as to why Chad's story was important yesterday. I don't know why a retired captain from a force that includes relatives of mine from the Tampa PD, including my godfather who founded the PBA, who knows Curtis. Why a man who spends his whole life in public service snaps one day at a movie? I have no idea. What I do say, and why it's important to me, is because of why I'm standing here. It's not about the money. It is about the viability of a company and creating jobs. Because that's what I love doing. And if that's not, and I will tell you that that's what you would want any CEO to do, is that he cares about the culture, cares about economic diversity between the ultra-rich and the ultra-poor, and how the median in income is shifting. We have never had more of a disparity in our economic environment since the Depression, as we did in the recession. And each time you have a huge distribution between those two populations, things get out of whack. And so the only way that it gets back in whack is companies coming in and creating new jobs in a place where they can be competitive and can financially afford to pay people. So to answer your question, the fact that you do hear me come month to month with progress should be the reassurance that the baby is still growing.
Well, it's about the money with me too, Travis. I mean, $7.2 million in 10 or 12 employees. In my mind, if we would have went to a different direction with $7 million, we could probably have 100 jobs or 150 jobs now. That's my philosophy, that's my thinking. And the way it looks to me, you're fixing to come before this board for another $3 or $4 or $5 million on something that really hasn't sold. I mean, I hear a lot of people that's got this around here say it's a great thing, but you don't seem to be able to sell it that I see.
And I respect that, and I respect the fact that, and I've thought about this a lot, and you can hear my answer as succinctly as possible. No government can buy a long-term job. Best you can do is build a highway, the highway's done, now you hire mowers. The point is that your money is invested for generations to come. It was not to attempt to take $7 million divided by $32,000 a year and somehow disperse it like that, because you know what? In reality of it is, people, and this goes back to the Chad story, if people don't like where they're working, they don't stay. You said that you retired from Preco?
Yeah.
If they made you feel like poop every day, if you had an alternative, would you stay 3 decades with them?
It's doubtful.
Yes. And so that's the thing I'm trying to do here. I want people to work another 30 years in that building. Whether some people believe me or not, those who know me know that that statement right there is to the letter gospel when it comes to Travis. And that's an environment that you cannot just create in a month or 2 months, because you can't just spend money to spend money. My mistake, if there was one, was hiring too many people too quickly. We needed to have some of the systems in place that were mature enough to know that those people had enough to do when they got there, that they felt good about what they were doing.
What concerns me is that this board could end up giving you $30 million and you end up with not selling your project and you got 10 or 12 employees out there. I mean, that's 30 million out of 40 million is all we're going to get. And if we don't have jobs with $40 million, then we have just failed. This board has failed.
I agreed. I don't know that even under my wild expectations that we would spend that kind of money and not an approved business model. I will tell you the jobs that we do have there are the ones that should be the nucleus for new ones to grow. Again, please understand that the function that a person performs, there are no Fords made in town. Am I right?
No
They're
what?
made somewhere else, but they're sold here.
What's that?
Ford Motor
Oh,
Vehicle.
Ford, yeah, Gene sells them.
Right, you couldn't say, sir.
Oh, made here. Oh.
They're not made here. The point I'm trying to make is that he would not have a job, no disrespect, but your job is to sell a product that is made somewhere else. And so Alan J, as a result, has salesperson, managers, operation, and service department people of a product that's made somewhere else. I know that's uncomfortable when you can't see it. You can see a Ford F-150 drive up on the lot. You can't necessarily see 2.3 up on a lot, but it's the same pocket. It's just a model. It's my generation's model. We don't make trucks anymore. We make software. Do you realize, just for instance, that $15 billion in the iPhone store has been distributed to developers that have put their product on that handheld device since it started? That is an entire economy. It's bigger than Pakistan. I mean, the point of understanding is that the Ford 150s that we're making today, even Preco, I mean, it gets its power from all different sources. The point is, we're moving to such a distributed model. I would not spend $30 million of anybody's money on 10s or 20s or 30s or 40s of jobs. It's the fact that it is that we have to assemble that product and make that business model work. I mean, we were in DC last month. We were 2 months before that, we were in San Francisco. We talk about our product and how our services are creating jobs. San Francisco people don't particularly care about where their chart is being done. I do, because it's part of our partnership. And so recognize that, yes, there might be 20 plus other people on staff that are making the product or making the Ford. There's 50,000 people that work at Ford, and there might be 5 people that sell them in town. It's going to be but the fact of it is that our model, we have a way of making Fords very, very inexpensively in the future, and most of the jobs are here in the town. And so our manufacturing of charts is because we're trying to make a technology plant somewhere else so that they can be processed here. And so these monthly meetings, I don't mind them. when these, I think your questions more times than not are actually pretty good questions, in the sense that I think that your heart is looking for legitimate answers, to which I always pray for wisdom that I can articulate an answer that can be consumed. Our model is different. We started a company in this room together. We funded it from various different sources, and we have learned along the way of what some of the anxieties are of the county, of the commissioners that have been on this board or rotated the members, and we continue to learn what oversight looks like. But we are the only one of our kind that could be the largest private employer by the end of the year in this town, minus say Finer. I mean, it's something that we should be trying to encourage. You would not make a mother work in the fields while she's trying to birth a child.
Here's an easy one.
I mean, I'm just saying that there is a sense that we are seeing fruits.
Give me an idea how much income stream is coming into the county based on the sales of the product. What are we getting as, and you notice saying our money. No, this is public money. It comes from the feds, from the state, from Finer, not Finer, from Mosaic, from the other company, from Hardy County. It's public money. And how you spend that public money is how efficiently you spend it, how much income you bring in that you can show. Can you give me a number? How much income is coming in from selling the product?
Because that is a trade secret. So
But we can't hear you.
it's called a trade secret. You might want to look it up on your Plunket Wagnall and your teeth.
It's proprietary.
The point, the reason that you keep those things private is because don't you think that there are other people who would like to copy our model? Does anyone not respect the fact that we're trying to protect an investment? Now, I would say that in all sincerity, you were not intellectually honest. I asked you to sign an NDA to see my own personal financial statements. Not something I'm
No, I
required
am
to do.
intellectually honest. I said no.
You said no, and I did not show them to you.
I would not sign it, and I didn't expect you to show it to me, because I explained to you very carefully that my asking questions before the upcoming vote, and you're introducing people, could be construed as lobbying. And we made a decision that we were not going to lobby, or anybody would lobby.
We were not there to
But
lobby.
I told you that I would not sign a
And you
confidential.
didn't, and I did not show you something that
So
otherwise.
where
I-
is that intellectually dishonest?
Because you did not mention the request of why there was an NDA. And it wasn't to
Well,
keep something.
You know, I wish you would
private
listen
from
to the
board.
whole tape. You've had it for months already. You should have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and you and Jamie Grant should have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb.
I was
Okay.
there.
Horst, while we respect your opinion, this is once again bringing up.
No, it's not opinion, it's fact.
It's
All you gotta
fact
do is
according
listen
to
to the-
Horst, and this is something that happened over 4 months ago. And this seems to be a reoccurring issue with our meetings being completely derailed to hash out issues that are 4 months old. That's really no action on the part of the board presently. So we're gonna move on. Are there any other questions from board members for Mr. Bond?
Travis, how do we as a board determine to give you more money if you can't give us this type of information? If everything's confidential, how do we know that you're as far along as you say you are? How do we know that you've got money coming in? How do we know that you're going to sign an insurance company tomorrow? I mean, it's just, I mean, how do we know?
I think you ask questions. We find ways to build trust. We find ways, whether it's an auditor or an independent person, that asks the questions that you need. I will tell you that I act as a steward, as CEO and chairman of this company, not only for my own money, but for those that have invested their time and energy over the last several years and your money. And so I try to be a good steward for all stakeholders because that's my job. The questions about whether the revenue is coming in or not, even if we were making $100 million in revenue a year, I would not say it from this podium. until we were required to actually disclose that information in a public forum, that would be part of a trade secret. How big we are, how much somebody would have to spend to outbeat us, what somebody could buy us and take us off the map for. What I do try to do is build trust. That is why we had those meetings before the other meetings, to give people the environment that lasts longer than a meeting, to ask questions that they want to ask, and we would try to give them the answers. I think these reports show spend. I think the packets and the thing that I show up there talk about the progress. I will ask, when we sign a contract with one of these organizations, that there's constraints as to how we can market it. When we market it to the open, I will be first dibs here to the county to let them know what we've signed, if we're allowed to tell people that we've signed. Sometimes they keep their contractors private. There are mutual marketing clauses in those agreements. I think the other element, sir, as to how you can judge whether this money is being spent is that you use the software. You review the blogs that we send out, the release notes, that you see that the Ford F-150s are getting made, that you go to the environments to see, do we have a presence on the internet? And I've never stopped anyone in this board from coming to Tech River and sitting down and having a talk with perhaps myself and some of the other employees about what they do. I'm not the only messenger, I'm just the chief evangelist. But I think that those are valid. I think that the auditing team is going to talk about hopefully building more trust, and that we've spent the money how we said we've spent it. I'm trying, sir.
Can I get to the thing, Casey?
Yeah, can I just make a point real quick? I just want to clarify something. Mr. Samuel, so you keep referencing that there's been another request for money, or, $3,
Well,
$4,
I
$5,
feel
$30
it's
million.
coming.
Well, I just want to clarify that there is no request on the table today for additional funding. So I think we were kind of confusing that issue, and there is no request for additional funding.
Okay, well, that was just a guess.
Okay, well,
I thought you were lobbying.
I haven't said 2 words. So no, sir.
Well.
Yes, sir, I can answer any questions as well.
I'd just like to ask Travis, on those 40 to 70 jobs, what do you think the average salaries will be?
Okay, I worked it out hourly in my head at a blended rate.
Or you can give me a range.
Full-time equivalents, which would be better without benefits, are probably in the upper 20s to mid-30s.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on the, this month's invoice thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you've got it in here for $59,043 and something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got a separate LifeSync thing for $11,000. Is that part of the 59, or is that a separate charge to be paid?
It's just a partial reimbursement. It's just part of showing what what their expenses were. But the $59,000 actually does go to the salaries of that. But the $11,000 invoice that's in your packet every single month, he was just
yeah.
showing that,
But is it part of the 59,000? That's what I'm asking.
It shows right here not as the full, they're not requesting that full reimbursement, the second line on the first page
Oh,
of the
they just requested
5,500.
half of it.
It's saying partial request for that LifeSync.
right, that $5,000 on the
Oh,
first
okay.
invoice, that's the
Okay.
partial request.
Okay, that's
for
what
that.
had me
That's what it's
confused.
showing that.
Okay, so they're not asking for the full 11,000?
No, sir.
Okay, all right.
No, sir. Can I just
Yes.
say something real quick? This is the remaining balance on the $7.25 million commitment.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of my personal soapbox, real quickly. Just because this is the last straw does not mean that this partnership has ended. This $7.25 million, which is roughly 20% of the $42 million that this board has for economic development, is a high-risk investment. Your other investments have been put into infrastructure needs, spec buildings, bringing in those manufacturing type jobs. In my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for anybody else, your $7.25 million has been invested into a high-risk investment that is truly, in my opinion, economic development. The manufacturing jobs, the spec buildings, everything else that is going into the investments of the IDA, I think are important, and I think that they're critical. However, it's my opinion, biased as it may be in some of your opinions, that the Continuum project, the Tech River project, is a true economic development project that has the potential to bring in diversified jobs that this community does not have and has not had at this point in time. All we talk about as a community is getting kids to come back here after they graduate college. Kids aren't going to come back here unless those jobs are different. They're higher paying jobs and they're more diversified. So to me, Tech River Continuum has the potential to bring in those diversified jobs. And just a rule of thumb in investment is that 20% of your investments should be high risk. That's what you guys have done with your $7.25 million.
What is the role of this board and the staff?
Can you clarify that for me?
Is it to bring jobs into the county for our county people?
You're asking me what the definition of
Yeah,
economic development
is that what that we're supposed to be doing?
My definition of economic development is to create an environment of opportunity.
Just an environment of opportunity.
If that means a spec building to bring in jobs, if that means an incubator space to give people the opportunity to build their buildings, if that means, yes, bringing in jobs. It's just about creating, I don't believe that economic development is just creating jobs. I don't believe that it is just infrastructure. I believe that it's a combination of all of those working together to give people an opportunity.
Do you think that economic development is bringing jobs in here at all, or trying to keep jobs out of here?
If you listen to what I just said economic
I'm
development
just getting your
also
opinion.
includes. Sure,
I just
yeah,
want
and
your
I'm
opinion.
glad to give it to you.
Because
But
I'm
economic-
wondering sometimes if that's what some people think is their job, is not to bring jobs in here. I'm just asking you.
Okay, and you're entitled
I'm
to
just
your
asking
opinion.
you.
I don't think that I said that anywhere. I
No,
don't
you
think that I
didn't.
said
No,
that.
you didn't.
Okay.
No, you didn't. You
Right.
didn't at all.
And
No,
again,
I like what you
this
said.
is my soapbox. This is the last straw request. I just felt like
I'm
I'd
just
take this opportunity to
wondering
give you my opinion.
If that is the job of this board and the staff, is to do their best to bring jobs to Hardee County for our county people.
And I think that you know the answer to that.
You think is that a yes answer?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
that's what I want
But I
to know.
don't think that it is simple as just bringing in jobs, because your definition of what jobs are more qualified for Hardee County might be different than what my jobs.
Well,
what
sure,
my
a job's
are.
a job, and I agree, a job's a job.
Sure.
But I just want to know if that's the focus, that what we're supposed to be doing, and the staff is supposed to be doing.
Again, I gave you my opinion.
Okay.
On that.
Yeah.
So.
Very
Okay,
good.
any other questions from board members? All right, we're going to take a brief 5-minute break before we move into bionitrogen.
Are y'all just honoring the request without a vote? I think about 300.